There.
Persuasive speech. I have 3 pets, 2 hermit crabs and a cat. They are all well kept. They are all provided in a well-kept environment, and they are not malnourished. We have very loving people in this house. This is not the case for many animals all over the world today. Animal experimentation and suffering is often justified if it helps people out in the long run. Animal experimentation can be argued that it is necessary. It can be used to see how substances affect us. Sydney Dragon, author of the article Animal Testing Alternatives, states that experimentation is used to find cures for cancer or advances in medicine in general. It also is used to find how birth defects affect babies and making sure products are safe to use, like hairspray or lotion. Animal testing is also includes using chemicals on animals because it lets scientists see how they use, absorb, and release the chemicals. Scientists also evaluate how chemical substances are used in drugs, cosmetics, and food sources. Animal testing can also be used to find treatment and cures for diseases. The American Heart Association regulates animal testing. Before each experiment, they have to find if there are alternatives to use animals. If there are alternatives, animals cannot be used. Animal experimentation is only used when absolutely necessary. There are laws for scientists to follow when testing on animals. In the United States, there is the Animal Welfare Act. Within this act, it states an animal is any living or non-living organism. Scientists are required to follow this act, and the main goal of this act is to make sure there are alternatives that can be used in place of animals. The alternatives can be most commonly referred to as 3 R's: replacement, reduction, and refinement. Replacement is using a different way to find out information, such as researching past experiments or using a sample cell instead of an animal. Reduction is reducing the amount of animals used within the experiment without losing any vital information. And finally, refinement is having a change in the experiment so there is no pain caused to the animal. In the UK, a law similar to the Animal Welfare Act is called the Animal Scientific Procedures Act. Within this act, it states that experimenters can only test on animals if they obtain a personal license, a project license, and the environment in which the experiment is going on is approved. Animal Aid, an organization that campaigns against all forms of animal abuse, states the environment that animals are kept in is not well kept for them. The environments can be toxic to the animals, and because they are put in cages, there is limited motion. Procedures and testing become routine for the animals, and there is no escape. Dragon states that there are a lot of animals that are used in experiments, but the most commonly used ones are hamsters, rats, cats, dogs, guinea pigs, primates, birds, and billions of animals are bred to be surplus, so scientists can test on them over and over again. In the picture below, we can see that there are bunnies that have their head on one side of the container and their body on the other. The bunnies shown in this picture are often used to test cosmetics. However, you can see the harsh environment that they are in, since the head is not with the body. According to PETA, there are brands that do test on animals and brands that do not test on animals. Some of the popular brands that do test on animals include Suave, Kleenex, Glade, Tide, Lysol, and Clorox. The brands that do not test on animals include Mary Kay, Harley James Cosmetics, Paul Mitchell Systems, PetGuard, and Ramo Bright. Animals also differ from people in a lot of ways, state the organization Animal Aid. Firstly, rats, which are one of the animals most commonly tested on, produce their own vitamin C, while we have to drink orange juice or get it some other way. They also do not vomit, and roughly 40% of the marketed drugs and food additives cause cancer in them. Primates, like chimpanzees and monkeys, differ from us too. Chimpanzees are very closely related to us, but the percent that we are not related makes a big difference. For one, their brain size is much bigger than ours, so it makes it difficult for scientists to test for neurological diseases in them. Also, when monkeys are given Parkinson's disease, they gradually get better from it, while if we have it, we get gradually worse from it. Finding if something is safe to use is always good. Breeding a surplus of animals and testing on them is not. It's unethical to test on animals excessively, to harm them, and experiment on them. It's unethical for manufacturers to test on animals if the final product could hurt consumers. Why are we experimenting and hurting animals if certain substances cause damage to organisms, which include us and animals? There are alternatives to animal testing. Two very good examples are sample cells and bacteria. By using these, the animal isn't being put through extensive research. They also do not take up a lot of space like cages do, and it rules out breeding a surplus of animals. The animal also is not being put through extreme measures. By having sample cells and bacteria, laws and regulations should be placed. This would help scientists experiment in a safer way, and it would be more ethical than testing on animals over and over again. Testing on animals is unethical because scientists put animals through extreme measures that are very unnecessary. Animal experimentation should not be allowed if it is going to do more harm than good. It should also not be allowed if there are alternatives to use besides animal. Alternatives can be using sample cells, bacteria, or both.